My hat! Alright, so it's a fun day today, or it's a good day. So I'm going to install this 3200 kV EZRUN 3660 motor on my Traxxas Slash that I built, Proline Slash, because it's not a stock Slash. This is the ESC. So if you saw the review of the unboxing, I already talked about this plate. This is pretty cool. So Hobbywing includes this plate, and this plate just mounts right over here. You can mount it this way as well, and then the ESC will just, with the double stick tape, just stick here, and that's it. Now on the standard high CG, such as this one, because the ESC sits here in the back, the wires fit, everything's good. But on the low CG, such as this one, the ESC now has to mount over here. The motor wires are too short. They will not reach, and it's not by much. So you're going to have to make some extensions for the wires. So I'm going to go ahead and make the extensions for this Hobbywing system that's going on that truck. Just don't tell my wife I got it. She doesn't know yet that I bought more RC stuff, or else I'm going to be in trouble. Let's see. So the first thing, I already made 2 of them. And I decided to wait on this one just in case you haven't seen some of my other videos where I'm tinning. First thing you want to do is you want to tin the wires. And right now, see a little bit of smoke. Usually you want to clean the tip a little more. This is somewhat dirty. But you're just going to lay this on the wire, and it doesn't matter, it can be top side. And then the solder, you just apply it on the wire near the tip. Once it comes to temperature, it'll just start melting the solder. You don't necessarily need to touch the tip of the soldering gun or soldering iron if you're using a soldering iron instead. But there we go. See, so I wasn't touching the tip, but now it's melting. And there we go. So that is tinned. And you should get that shiny finish. Not sure if you can really tell. But it's a chrome-like finish. That's what you want. If you do not, and it looks a little opaque, that's all right. Just apply a little more heat. Usually that fixes it up. So you'll just apply a little more heat. Everything sort of melts. And then that's it. Should be fine. You also have to tin the terminal wherever you're going to put the wire. Now, one important thing too that I want to mention is make sure you have a female and a male. That's the only way it's going to work, because the ESC has female connectors, so that's why you need the males here to connect there, and then the motor has the male connectors. So you need to be able to connect those. So just make sure you solder them correctly. If you accidentally solder them wrong, not a big deal. Just solder off and solder back on. Here I'm applying heat to the terminal, and then I'm just touching the terminal with the solder. And that's all I'm doing. Now there's solder there, and it should cool pretty quick. Soldering, if you've never soldered before, it may seem intimidating, but it's not bad. It's not that bad. It's all about having the right tools. Now, the way most people will recommend soldering is with a soldering station. Soldering stations tend to run over $100 versus a soldering gun does the job. Soldering gun tends to run about $40. If you get a soldering iron for under that price, to be honest, they tend to not be that great of a product, but it's your money. Just get something that can apply enough heat. This soldering gun is very good. I forget the temperature it can solder. Now, when you're soldering these terminals, you apply heat, but then after this, you want to bring this together so that the wire actually goes in the pocket. So there's a little gap inside. So it'll fit sort of on the outside, and then as you apply the heat and you melt the solder that's in there, the wire will just slide in, and then it will go down to, let me use these, right about there. There's actually a line on the outside, but the camera doesn't show it. The other thing too is, notice I'm using fuel tubing. You can use something else, anything that can create that can work as an insulator. The reason why is if you do not, and you put the terminal on the alligator clips, these will absorb the heat. So it makes it really difficult to solder. So fuel tubing, that's what I use, and I do use this set of helping hands. So I have both of these. I lost one of the clips, but it still works. As long as I have more than two, it works out. Now, something else that you want to do is insulation. Keep in mind that these may touch. You don't want them to short. So here I do have the different colors that are used for A, B, and C, because this is a brushless system. Sensorless, but it's still brushless. So that being said, I'm going to use the corresponding colors for the tubing. Now at this point I put the soldering gun away where it won't burn anything. But you want the tubing, and see that line there, like there, all right, right here. That's where I want this shrink tubing to go. Now I'm going to start heating it from the terminal side to the wire side. That's just to get the air out. And I'm just going to turn. Now what you see there, that's soot. So don't worry about it. I'm not burning this. If I run my finger through it, it'll rub off. But there we go. Now be careful when you touch this, it could be hot. But that is it. So this one is set. Now this one over here, this is the female side, right? Just in case you're wondering, this is the male end, that's the female. Male end goes in the female end. That's why it's called what it's called. Now these are 4 millimeters. So these are 4 millimeter female, 4 millimeter male. And that's what the EZRUN system uses. So here we go. And once you're here, you just slide it forward. And I actually go just a little past. It's probably 0.5 millimeter that I slide this past. And I do that on purpose. All right. And then after that, you don't have to leave it in the fire for too long. But as you can see, it'll just start shrinking. And it'll take the shape. And that's why I'm rotating it, so that it shrinks somewhat evenly. But then you create a nice little seal so there's no air. And that's it. So now I have my extensions. And I will be showing you why you need the extensions, how short the wires are. That's if you want to leave everything in the correct spot. But here we go. At least if my wife finds out that I'm buying this stuff and she watches the video, there's no prices. So I won't get into too much trouble. I guess I could always pretend they were birthday gifts. I wonder how many birthdays a person can have. That'd be interesting. I mean, as long as you don't count them, right? Birthdays are meant to be celebrated, not counted. That's going to be one of the Telecomando t-shirts. But we will see. So, let's go ahead. So this here, this plate screws on where the XL5 ESC would generally screw onto, which is pretty cool. This is one thing I like about Hobbywing. They provide this little plate, probably because a lot of people use their systems to upgrade their Traxxas vehicles. I do like their brushed systems. I've mentioned this before. They're great to start with. Also, if you start out off-road racing, their brushed systems are really good to get started. I mean, you're not going to win any major championships. You're probably going to win the rookie class, and then if you have a stock slash class, just something that's stock spec. But I do like the systems because they're very smooth. It's a brushed motor, that's why. Whereas the VXL, yes, you can get a little more power out of it, but it's not quite as smooth. And to be honest, this motor here is less expensive, and they will outperform the VXL system. Again, if you got a vehicle with a VXL system, that's the better deal than buying a VXL system afterwards, but you can always upgrade to a VXL system. Not a big deal. But anyway, plate is on there. The ESC, I will mount the ESC later, but the way I'm going to be mounting this is I'm not going to be able to use the temperature sensor more than likely because I don't think it will reach the motor, but the temperature sensor will have to go this way. What I may end up having to do is, I'll run it without the temperature sensor, not a big deal, but I may have to remove these or get an extension to go here. So we'll see what I'll do next time. I really don't want to cut the wires and solder to them. But now I'm ready for the motor. So let's go with the motor. Here's the motor. Now there's a variety of ways that you can mount it. Now I'm mounting it on this Proline transmission. And if you look at the wires could go this way. My recommendation is mount them as close to the front as possible, simply because they are short with the LCG, because now the ESC has to fit over here instead of right here. That's the reason why. So in this case, I can mount this here, and I'm going to grab my screw. Now these screws, I'd already put some Loctite on them, or thread lock, the blue stuff. Don't use the red stuff. Especially on the motor, you do not want to use the red stuff. The reason why, if you've never used the red stuff, that is much stronger. And the way thread lock is supposed to work, for example, a Loctite brand, or thread locks in general are supposed to work, is they're supposed to dry up or go solid under pressure. So as you tighten the screw and those threads get tighter, so you're tightening it and the threads just start getting tighter as this is doing this, right? It'll rotate and eventually go one way or the other. I can't really imitate the screw very well, and I don't have something large enough to show you. But it'll create pressure between the teeth, and that will solidify the thread lock. That's the way it works. So if you just leave thread lock out in the open, it's not going to dry solid like super glue. It will turn into a gel, and then it'll turn into not necessarily a powder. I'm not sure how to describe it right now, to be honest. A really doughy, grainy substance. But between threads under pressure, that's where it becomes solid. And the idea behind it, you release some of the pressure and then you loosen everything up. That's why when you grab thread lock, you will notice that when you remove the screws, it's generally still somewhat soft and liquid-like. That's the reason behind it. The pinion gear that I'm going with is a 16 tooth. That's what I had previously with the brushed motor. Brushed motor ran, as far as speed, it was good, but it would heat up too much before finishing up a pack. So it's the wrong gearing, to be honest, for any type of racing, because you're just going to burn up your brushed motor. That's the reason why. So definitely get maybe a 13 tooth pinion for a brush motor if you are running the Proline transmission, because the Proline transmission, remember, you have a smaller spur. Well, your spur has less teeth versus stock. Most brushed slashes have a 90 tooth spur, and then you can get the optional 86. I think Traxxas also offers an 84 or something low, and then there's also a 72 or 74. I don't remember. That's what generally comes in the Bandit. But it's too much for the brush motor. Brush motor, if you're running a 90 and 22, you'll probably be fine. 90 and 20 is good. The 86 and 19 is actually a very good choice. Yeah, you could even go down to a 16 if you want it on the perfect on the pinion. But when it comes to this, you have to calculate your ratio all over again, because this is, I forget if it's a 56. I want to say it's a 56 tooth. Let's see, 56. Yes, 56. So if you think about it, you're looking at just under 2/3. So your pinion has to be just under 2/3. So I think this will be fine for this brushless motor, especially because this is a longer can. The VXL system would also overheat with this. But this one here, this is a 60 millimeter. So length is 60 millimeters versus the VXL is a 55. It's considered 55. It's bulky because it has that piece of plastic back here where the wires come out. So the wires do not come out the top, they come out the side. That's why it seems long. But that is it. Now the mesh, I eyeballed it and then I just held, I guess I should have told you, kind of just hold it and then you feel, you can rock this back and forth. And you should be able to hear a mild kind of clicking or hitting. That's how you know your mesh is good. If your mesh is too loose, you're going to destroy the teeth on the outside. If your mesh is too tight, you're going to destroy them as well, because the teeth are not going to slip off or slide off very easy. So they're going to be cutting into each other. And given that your pinion is metal and your spur is plastic, guess which one's going to go? It's going to melt. I actually did that before in my Bronco. But that's a different story. So be careful with the mesh. With the Bronco, it's similar to Fortec, where it has a mount, and then you have to look up the letters that correspond to whatever mounting position. So if you use a certain pinion, a certain spur, there is a certain letters where you're supposed to mount the motor. That's the reason why. All right, so as you can see the wires are too short. They would never make it. Now, I've already put alcohol there, so I'm going to go ahead and seat this. Just a little bit of lint. And I can't really see, so let me do it this way. All right, that looks good to me. So once it's sat, just apply pressure. Now I'm grabbing it from the sides and here in the heatsink. I'm not applying pressure on top of the fan. Sometimes you can break this, or if you have the metal ones, you can dent them in. So be careful. But that is it. So this is taped on. You can hold the truck from it. Good to go. Now here, if you're not familiar with the colors, that's all right. You can just refer to the letters in the motor. And you have A, so this is A, which is blue. And then in here, I mean, I already sat the ESC, but I'll show you in this one here. So it will have the letters as well. So A, going from here, from left to right, it's A, B, C. So all that you have to do is just look at the motor, and the first wire here is A, then B, then C. So A will be blue. So I'm just going to grab my blue wire. I'm going to put it in A. B will be yellow. I'm going to go to B. And then orange will be this one, the last one, which is C. Now really quick, I'm going to say most, just in case there's one sensorless motor where it matters. Most sensorless motor, it does not matter. You can just wire them. The only thing that will happen is your truck may go forward or it may go in reverse. And you can just swap 2 wires usually, and it'll reverse the direction. But on censored motors, it matters. So the way that you reverse the rotation is programming. You have to go into the programming. And this is it. So if you remember that small little amount of insulation that I left, that's so that it creates a seal with this insulation over here. So notice how now when I collect, these are the extensions that I made. And to be honest, I could have made them a little shorter. I made them this length because that's about the length of the Traxxas, the actual Traxxas ones. now that I'm seeing this, I think I may actually run the wires through here and then here just to make it neater. I'm going to put this here first. So let me just put the dust cover on. It's a dust cover because it's supposed to prevent dust from getting into your gears, although dust, fine dust, will still get in there. But at least you will not get any large pebbles, rocks, stones, things that can really destroy your spur or even pinion. Sometimes your pinion will also get destroyed. Now these here, just get them snug. Do not over tighten because you can break the plastic. I'm not going to demonstrate. I will not. But as long as they're just snug, you're fine. There's no need to go any further. But that is it. So actually what I'm curious is to see if I can run it over here. So let me just go ahead and disconnect these. This is one of the nice things too about having these connectors, 4mm connectors. Actually I want to go this way. Around. That you can easily remove the ESC and the motor. Well, the motor really, because this, you have to unstick it and then remove the screws. Because the wires go through the shock mount, and that's the problem. Let's see, is this long enough? Nope, not long enough. Alright, so I cannot do that. I was hoping I could wrap them this way just to make it neater, but it doesn't matter. Probably just go through here, and this will work. Alright, connect everything. Yellow, and then orange. Perfect. Actually, that looks a lot better. I ran the wires through there. Although through the triangle would probably be better. I don't think they'll rub. I'll just check them after running the truck for a while. See if the wires are rubbing in the insulation. If the insulation's fine, I'll leave it. If not, I will move them down here. Could always put just a little tie strap and strap them there. Good. So now at this point, the only thing that you need to do is run this cord over. And there's a few things that I want to do, to be honest. One, I'll grab a different part here, and I am going to clean this here because I will be putting a piece of tape later on. Not in this video. Well, maybe I'll do it in this video. You'll see me put some duct tape in there. Alright, see, that's dirty. Alright, then I'll use this other one to put the switch. So the switch, I can place it there, I can place it here, for example. I'm not sure where I want it. I'll probably place it here. So that'll be easy to access, and it's inside instead of being out here somewhere. So let's go ahead and clean that. Might as well. And I'm just using rubbing alcohol, that's all I'm using. This one happens to be 91% isopropyl alcohol. Alright, let's try using this. Perfect. Alright, now I'm going to run this one first. And you just run the ribbon right through. And if you've swapped electronics before in your slash, then you're familiar with this. If not, this is something that you will have to do. And then in here, I'm just using my driver to shift the connector just below the receiver box because it will hit the receiver box as you're pushing it through. So just keep that in mind. And then once it's through here, I'm actually going to run the ribbon over here. And you're probably going to have to lift your receiver, which is something that I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do because there's a little gap inside of your receiver box, and that ribbon has to make it through. And it's generally, once your receiver is installed, there's not enough of an opening. The receiver will actually block part of the opening. So I didn't remove it completely. I just lifted the receiver slightly, but you did hear the tape as it was coming off. But then I just go ahead and seat it. And the double stick tape that Traxxas uses, I think is very good. And the reason why is usually you can remove it and then reuse it, which is great. That way you don't have to be replacing it all the time. Now here, I just need to make sure that this is going to go in channel 2, and it is, so it's right behind this. There we go. So channel 2 is my throttle. Now, I need to make sure these wires are sat properly. And my biggest concern, to be honest, right now is this ribbon for the servo. So I'm going to do that, hold it, and I'm going to take this part here, and this is the first thing I'm going to install. All right. And the reason why I do this is that way I know how much wire I need to tuck in inside of here, inside of the main receiver box. And also I can make sure that I do not damage the wires. So I'm trying to hold this while pushing the screw. There we go. Great. Awesome. All right. And there it is. So now, so all this wire is just going to go in there. That's going to be fine, right where it is. That works. And then I just need to make sure that I match up that little light with this. Therefore, this has to go this way. So if you take off this part and you don't remember the orientation, just remember that that clear eye, that has to line up with the little light in the receiver. That's all. The other way too is the program button in the receiver has to sort of line up with this here, because you will remove this if you have to access that button instead of taking off the entire top portion. Because then you have to remove 2 screws versus there you just remove that little plug. And at this point, I'm almost finished. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is you may have to program the ESC reverse, forward. You will have to program it with your transmitter, so you have to make sure they work together. Set your endpoints on your throttle brake. That's very important. All right, this will go here. So that's something to keep in mind. And one of the things I like about duct tape is it fits right in, and also this is very strong, and because it has that thick rubberized backing, if you do get a little bit of dirt, sand between the battery and the bottom tray, this will protect that wire very well from your battery and that sand, just sanding it down. So one of the things I do want to make sure is that this is flat. And then I'm just going to make sure it's in that little channel. Start setting the tape, and I'm not going to press it yet. There we go. Now I want to press it. And that is it. I could have used a smaller piece of tape. I could have used a piece of tape that covers the entire bottom area. It's up to you. But here we go. And like I said, this is not long enough, so this will not work. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in here and leave it there for now. But that's the temperature wire. So you can just get 2 small little wires, extend it, it'll be fine. this ESC is actually going to go in the Vortex, so if I wanted to, I could cut this, because I don't need such long wire. So I could cut this, remove this, put that in here, and then solder this on. That is a possibility. But for now, this is it. One cool little thing is I do get XT90 plugs, which means that my Traxxas connector is not going to work. But these here, these are rated at higher amps, which is better. The only thing, though, that I don't really like is this is really long. This is way too long. I generally don't like my battery wires to be longer than they need to. And if my battery's going to sit right here, this is too long. Now these, I believe, are 4.5 millimeter. I will have to check. But what I may end up doing is just removing this and then sticking it straight into the battery. Although I do have a Traxxas battery, one Traxxas battery, so I may just make an adapter since I have some females. Just make an adapter to attach. But that's too much plumbing. I don't like that. But this is it. So we now have the EZRUN system installed in the Proline Slash build. Thank you so much for watching, and then hopefully soon I can get you some running videos. Have a good one. Until next time, be good.